This is the SIG Architecture Enhancement Subproject meeting on Thursday, July 21st at 10 a.m. PT. I'm Kirsten, your host, and this call is being recorded and subject to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. Be nice to each other, and if you have any problems, feel free to contact me offline. And don't forget to sign in on the doc about who's here. Joseph, I think, is the only one who isn't on the doc right now. And I reordered it a little bit, so I guess I'll let Priyanka go first. I think she has an release team update for us. Go ahead, Priyanka.
Hey, thank you, Kristen. So it's a follow-up update from the sync discussion we had last week or maybe multiple weeks back. So this is regarding migrating from using GitHub, Google spreadsheet for enhancements tracking purpose to a GitHub project beta. As discussed, I created a issue under K community for just tracking the GitHub project beta creation. I have created a board. It's a test board that we are using to just test our automation scripts. So I've linked the issue there, 6735, which is tracking the board creation. Then the board is also linked there. There are also some scripts that we have raised PRs for. They will go under SIG release repo. And I've linked the one for enhancements related automation, and I need help with reviews and feedback on that. So I'm not sure if someone from sub project should be reviewing it or SIG release lead should be reviewing it. We need thoughts there.
I think it makes sense. Like I think Bob and I are aware of it, but I think since this is more of a release team thing, like you're going to want them to kind of review the nuts and bolts of whatever sort of request you're making for like all of the GitHub access stuff.
Good. So I'll add it to the next SIG release meeting agenda then. So just to give a brief overview of what is there in that PR, it's adding a bash script, which is just using GitHub CLI to authenticate with GitHub and grab some information from K enhancement repo and put it on the project board that I just created. So yeah, that's what we are doing there. And for that, we require a GitHub token. So when I'm doing it locally, I'm just creating one token of my own from my own GitHub account. But we are proposing that we'll run this script as part of a prow job periodically, maybe running every 3 or 5 hours. We are still discussing on that. But yeah, we'll require a GitHub token created from maybe a bot or something that have that have a set of permissions which are linked in that issue, and we would require that GitHub token to be added as a secret in the prow infrastructure, Google infrastructure where this prow job will run. So I had created an issue for that, and it was moved to K.org, but I don't know after this who should I reach out to for creating that GitHub token and helping us with that.
And that GitHub token is for prow jobs though that would be in the enhancements repo, right? Like just to understand.
That GitHub token will be added as a secret in the prow cluster.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Somewhere in wherever we are running one of the prow build cluster in Google Infra, we'll need to add it there.
And that PR just kind of stalled out a little bit, or that issue kind of stalled out a little bit?
Yeah, I need help to basically understand who should I reach out to for that GitHub token creation.
Okay, we can follow up for that. Find out who has to help you. But yeah, and so the idea is like you're moving everything over from 1.25 and you're going to see how it goes. And then are you changing anything like for the actual Are you changing anything for 1.26, or are you like test driving it at 1.26, or I guess what's that about?
Okay, yeah. So this is what I was thinking. We can just have it running as a parallel board in 1.26, and if the lead and the shadows during that release cycle feel it's
Mm-hmm.
good, then maybe we can add documentation around this board um,
Mm-hmm.
for 1.27 during 1.26 release cycle, and then we can really move away from
Yeah.
spreadsheet. But then there is not much changing as well with this board. The board is exactly same. I can maybe share my screen after this, but just wanted to mention one bit that uh, sorry, I forward. So the board is exactly same, just that, yeah. So there is one blocker there that this we can't clone and duplicate these boards. So for
Mm-hmm.
every standard GitHub project, there is a option available that you can clone or duplicate a board from whatever
Mm-hmm.
board you already have, um, and then you can just have a copy of that and change the name of that to 1 point maybe 26 and then use it further. But that's not the case with GitHub Project Beta. There is no clone or duplicate option available. There is a issue open for that, but I've not seen any progress in that. So which means uh, number one thing that any lead who will be using this as part of a release cycle would need to spend maybe a couple of hours having one board open on one side and taking one bit at a time from the board and adding it to a new board. So I was hesitant on that one, and I wanted to understand uh, what do you all feel about that, because I would not want a lead to be doing that, creating every bit in the board manually. There is no way to so we can create a board using GitHub APIs, but there are still not project v2 APIs which are not available for creating columns. um, it it just
Well,
says you whatever APIs are available are.
I think we're getting a little too into the weeds on like how the release team is going to like duplicate boards in the future, but it's also a beta project. So by the time you want to use it for 1.27, they very well might actually have that feature. But it's also not unheard of for the enhancement team lead to have to like do extra work, prep work on the front end of a release. So it seems within the scope of the role. Like I was enhancements lead, and that seems totally within the scope of the role to like have to spend a few hours prepping everything to get it ready. So it doesn't really feel like a blocker. But that also feels more like a release team question. I wouldn't let that block you from going forth with this, and it's beta, so it'll probably get sorted out in the future.
Yeah, I was going to talk to Bob and maybe some other people from GitHub staff team, whosoever we are currently talking to, and maybe figure out if there is a way. But right now, we might get some APIs to actually create columns, but at this moment they are not available. So the board creation bit is manual at the moment. Yeah, that's a one-time thing, but still it's manual. So wanted to put that out here as well. I think, yeah, I just had that much for this. I just need reviews and feedback on that PR, which is open for discussion.
Yeah, thanks for the update. Like for the most part, I think everybody who needs to be CC'd on those PRs is CC'd, and if you have trouble getting reviews, like we can poke people to help you, and I think SIG Release can probably also help you since it's like a release team thing. But yeah, it's
Great,
interesting. It
thank you.
sounds like you've gotten a lot done in it. I'll probably bother you about the project boards though, because we're trying to make a project board for something else. And now you'll be the expert. So, oh, I see that we have a new person in the meeting, Ryler. Do you want to say hi, or you don't have to? I just see that you're here.
Yeah, hey, I'm one of the shadows for the enhancements sub-theme this release. So I thought I would just drop by and see what typically gets discussed during this meeting, get a feel for all different topics. We're actually just talking with Priyanka in a previous meeting about shifting over and trying out the GitHub board. So pretty excited about trying that out and getting a feel for it.
Cool. And yeah, just as a note, like the release team stuff is not usually in this meeting at all. Like it's just because like we were discussing this like in a couple other meetings. So like that's more of like a release team thing. And I
Right.
want to make sure that all of this has kind of visibility for like SIG release and not the enhancements of projects. So just like I guess keep that in mind. Like, but I think it's great to get the updates and things. And I know Bob has been helping out a lot as well. But welcome.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Um, and then I have something on here, but I was just wondering if anybody else has any other topics that they wanted to discuss, like, because there's just mine that's left on the agenda. Xander, Ray, Joseph, no? No?
I'm just here to listen today.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I was basically, none of the other sub-project leads are here, so this is like semi, not not the full audience that I wanted, but yeah, so I've been working on a process kept template, and basically I don't know, I think most people have been on the release team, so but anyway, summary for whoever ever listens to this, if anyone ever does. Basically, like, we have a lot of people, not a lot, but we have a non-trivial number of people who use the kept template for process changes. So like maybe how a SIG does things, or a policy change that affects like the project, like, you know, thinking of like the cadence kept. And the existing kept doesn't really work for that, right? Because it's like very much for technical changes to the KK repo as opposed to like process and policy changes. So I was taking like a first pass of that just to like think it through, like kind of clean out the kept template for things that didn't necessarily make a lot of sense for process keps, because there's just like a lot of stuff that's like not applicable. Like you don't like, there's no testing, there's no this, there's no that. But I guess the thing that I was also thinking about was graduation criteria, because like on one hand, it's like, yeah, sure, like your SIG is like memorializing a process change, right? Like that's great. And you don't necessarily, like, it would go straight to GA, like, because maybe it's just like, I don't know, like SIG Enhancements has decided to, I don't know what we're going to decide to do. This is a bad example, but it could say, I don't know, there could be like some sort of like API process change, or whatever kind of process change. And that might make sense for the SIG and the owners to make that change, or to memorialize like an existing way that they do the process and have that go into effect immediately. But then when we think about things like the cadence kept, where we changed someone changed like, you know, the Kubernetes cadence from 4 to 3, something that really concerned me was that it kind of went straight to GA without like necessarily like a formal like commentary period, and like kind of ensuring that those large scale project changes get circulated for a minimum amount of time, like in the community before they go GA. I don't know. So I guess I'll just share my screen really fast, like just because I think I have like some crappy work in progress here that would, I can't think right now. So I think reading it off of my screen is probably easier. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I just need someone to like nod at me or something. Well, not nod because nobody's camera's on, but no.
Yeah, I understand what you
Right.
mean.
Okay. So can you see my little screen here with
Yes.
my PR? Okay. So like I'm just scrolling through this really quickly, but like I took out some things. You know, like I think I have to clean that up, but like a summary, like, you know, a motivation seems fine. Goals, non-goals, that's fine. I added a section that was scope and impact because that was something that I think came up a little bit. Like who's actually affected, you know, like if you're in, I don't know, SIG testing and you're documenting a process and it's only really affecting your group, it's like not a completely big deal, right? But if you're in SIG release and you're changing something that's like for everybody, then, you know, like let's indicate who's actually affected so people can kind of skip it and not pay attention. We can highlight whether or not like end users are affected, if it's like a multiple SIG thing, if it's a specific SIG's internal process, whatever, or the whole community. Like the current process, like, you know, you're like, are you changing a process or are you creating one? So like, does something already exist? And if so, like, what is that thing? I added that because I'm thinking, you know, like most people don't necessarily have processes written down. So it's also a way to kind of memorialize what they're doing, and to have people who are reviewing it have like the full context. I've taken out the user stories, I think, but so in the graduation section, I guess like I'm saying, like the criteria should really depend on the scope and the impact, right? Like I don't think that we want to do away fully with the total idea of graduation criteria, simply because there could be changes that are very large, and I'm thinking in terms more of communication and being able to communicate and have iterative time on those changes seems really important for large changes, and that could be part of the graduation criteria. So like I thought of it at the time as there's like 3 buckets, like a process change that goes into effect immediately. Maybe you're documenting a current process, or maybe it's just something that's really straightforward. Process change that goes into effect in next release. It might be like something like, you know, hey, we're going to do things differently on the release team, or we're going to, I mean, not the release team, but, you know, like we're going to do something differently as of this release. So like we want to, you know, let everybody know ahead of time. And then, you know, something where maybe it's just like a really big change. And so it's not necessarily the next release, because we want to have time to have like, you know, the commentary, we want to have time to iterate, and then we want to have time to actually let everybody know. And I think like for some extremely large changes, like the letting people know and prepare for those changes might make sense to have some future release date. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about for graduation criteria. And I'd be kind of interested, like when I put just like work in progress PR, to kind of like read the room on what other people are thinking, just because I feel like the process cap, like on one hand, it's stripped down, but on the other hand, like it still needs to have some standards of like, when does this cap go into effect and what has to happen before it goes into effect, you know? Like if it's a process change that was totally settled on in a SIG meeting and the SIG all agrees, then, you know, like that's a relatively trivial change that might just need like an email to KDev just to let people know or not. But for something larger, you know, like maybe we need to make sure that there's some documentation in place, some like community-wide like feedback mechanism in place where we really try to solicit some input, et cetera. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think through the graduation criteria instead of strictly letting people do whatever they want. Because I think like the biggest thing about process caps is the communication part and getting the comment and also understanding the impact to other people. So I don't know. I don't know what other people think. I know they're all like kind of involved on the team and things. So yeah, that was something that I was like fooling around with. That would be nice to, I think.
I like those changes a lot. I think those are great sections to add. I agree with you that something that affects the whole community should be GA'd in a feature release. Maybe we could set some guidance and like, you know, this affects the whole community, I think it should target a feature release instead of
right. Yeah, like to be able to say like, hey, as of like, okay, like I'm proposing this massive community-wide change in, what are we in, 125, and I'm going to get like a bunch of feedback, etc. Like, I don't know, like it kind of would feel weird to say, okay, well, it's in effect in 126, when it could just like the whole feedback loop and update could be done like a few weeks before 126. Like that doesn't necessarily feel like enough time to then be able to articulate to the general public like what the big change is, right? Like, so like in my mind, I was thinking, well, hey, like that could be a great opportunity to then use 126, like the next release, to publicize the change so that everybody knows that as of 127, this is like the new thing, like depending on the scale, of course. But I think it's like having those communication, like kind of mandating a certain amount of communication depending on the scope of the change. I don't know. Because I think some changes are really big and they're really hard to, I don't know, circulate in one release, whereas others might not be, right? And other people might have circulated it already. So I think it just depends, but I'm totally rambling. I'm really tired today, so I'm sorry for everybody having to listen to me babble.
I always feel like it takes a while to get knowledge or information of a process change out and comprehended by people, not the message out, but like people actually reading it and taking note of that change. Even though you've emailed KDev a few times, but I feel like it always takes a little bit of time. So I think it's great to have some kind of guidance to, hey, if it does affect everyone, can we need to put a GA in 2 releases, or make sure comps go out, lots of comps go out next release, and then GA it out, GA and the release after that, or something like that.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, you know, like we can kind of think through like the different levels of scope, and it's kind of like ensuring like a minimum quality of communication, you know, as well, to be able to say like, okay, like, well, this is a small thing, but you know, I assume that you've sent something to your Slack channel, you've put it in your meet, you've brought it up at a meeting, you've updated your GitHub docs. Like maybe that's all that's needed. But for other people, it's like, okay, well, maybe you need KDev. Maybe KDev's not enough because people don't read those emails. Like maybe we need to make sure that there's like a blog post. Maybe we need to make sure that there's like, I don't know, a tweet or something, you know, like just kind of like setting the minimum amount of communication that certain changes need to make, just to ensure that everyone kind of knows, especially like end users, if it impacts end users or something. It's like they're not reading Slack, they're not reading KDev or anything. So yeah, like maybe it's working with the comms team and other people. So yeah, I was just thinking of incorporating that into the graduation criteria, along with, there's probably other things that will come up, I'm not sure, but like documentation seems really important, you know, like, okay, you have this new process and it's in a KEP, but did you update like your like SIG docs or whatever formal docs exist, like that this would be applicable to? Like that would be something that, at least in my mind, would be necessary for it to be GA, even if the GA is like in one release. I would want to see, you know, the PR where you updated this somewhere. So yeah, okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like crazy, like kind of with this idea. It seemed good at the time, but then I thought it might have been bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Cool, then I'm gonna make you review my PR.
All right, I will.
And yeah, so that was the main thing I was working on, just because people have been asking for it, and seems like something that can probably get done in the next, I don't know, before the next release, and that would be a nice thing to have. And obviously, like, I don't think that we're creating like a ton of rules or anything, but I think people will try using that KEP instead of the existing KEP, and we'll get feedback on it as people use it as well. Just because I don't think the current KEP format really works well. So yeah, does anybody have anything else? I'm totally babbling now. Any more coffee? Oh God.
Hey, I was looking for the a link to the PR. So is it already open, or
No,
you are
it's not.
going to? Okay, okay, correct.
So like Ray or Xander, is there anything you wanted to talk about at all, or?
No, I'm
Think you're
good.
good?
I just along to listen and
Cool.
gonna scamper off to get some more coffee as well, I think.
He's like re-entered the office atmosphere. Seems like a lot. I'm just gonna, if there's no other points, I'm gonna stop recording. So thank you. How do I stop it?